Because all we did was stand around and watch that fire burn. Anybody see what happened in West Virginia just last month and a half ago? A 20-inch high-pressure pipeline blew up, opened up, and shot a 200-yard flamethrower across 5 houses and across a major highway, north and south. It melted the asphalt for 800 feet. Melted it, burned it right off. But there's no problem with putting a pipeline anywhere, right? Well, how about Elk Lake? Cabot's partner, Williams, that wants to build the Constitution Pipeline. By the way, they're going to use eminent domain if you let them do this. Eminent domain means that's a 30-inch high-pressure gas line. They can bowl right underneath the foundation of your house because there is no setbacks with a FERC line. And they don't have to ask your permission. They just have to tell you where it's going to go. Now, here's the funny part. That goes 120 miles to Albany from Brooklyn, Pennsylvania. This little line here is my 33-mile one. That has 10 compressor stations. 5 are currently on it, and 5 more proposed to go 33 miles, and it's 16-inch. You want to hear the joke, the funny part? They filed with FERC. There is 1 compressor station right there in Schoharie County. 1 on a 120-mile, 30-inch high-pressure gas line. Who are they kidding? Now, all the termination happens right here in Brooklyn, PA. They happen to be building one called the Central H Pre-Compressor Station. But they say it doesn't have anything to do with the Constitution line. It's not part of it. That's a false filing by FERC. We're getting tired of the state government, our local government, and every other government not helping us. So I'm wearing my father's flight jacket. He spent 63 years of honorable service in the Civil Air Patrol, starting off at Squadron 129 in New York State when he was 11 years old. And then he died here in Pennsylvania, still a lieutenant colonel. He specialized in emergency management. If you remember who Tom Ridge was, he was the governor of Pennsylvania and resigned and took on Homeland Security. His second call was to my father. My father was an emergency services expert. Why am I mentioning that? Because when WPX drilled 4,000 feet away from Franklin Forks on both sides, the Depew well on 4,000 feet away on the west, 4,000 feet on the east was the Hollenbeck well, and on December 6th, over a year ago, the water went black for 6 families on Route 29 in Pennsylvania. And guess what? They called the DEP, and they called WPX, and they showed right up. And they're investigating. To this day, 13 months later, they have no answer. But for 4 months, these people had contaminated water. There was so much pressure of methane in their water well, it was erupting every few hours and shooting water out 20 feet to each side of the well. Well, after 4 months, I found out about it. I'm just a neighbor. I didn't know the people from Adam. A friend of mine, I went and visited. We knocked on their door. Very nice family, Matt and Tammy Manning, in their 40s. Their 2 daughters live with them and 3 grandchildren. 3 generations, 7 people in one house. At one point, they had 86 milligrams per liter of methane coming up through their water. They had to leave their windows open in December, January, February, and March to avoid asphyxiation when they took a shower. The DEP did nothing. Neither did WPX. So the next day, I had 5 news crews in their front yard. And nobody liked that. Boy, WPX was very upset about that. And DEP, too, very embarrassing. So I gave them one chance. Are you going to disconnect their water wells, put water buffaloes attached to their house for clean water, and put a vent pipe on their wells? No, they're not. They're still investigating. So the next day, I did what my father would have done if he was here. I called PEMA, Pennsylvania Emergency Management. You have an emergency management in Pennsylvania, too, or New York, too. They all went to work when Hurricane Sandy happened. I called PEMA and I just declared an emergency methane explosion hazard on Route 29 in Franklin Forks, Pennsylvania. And in 5 seconds, I was talking to Bob Full, the director of the state of Pennsylvania's emergency management. He couldn't believe what I was telling him. So guess what Bob did after I talked to a beeping line that recorded me? Because you don't call emergency management and declare a disaster or an emergency without it being real. He got off the phone with me very upset. He called Secretary Krancer, and that conversation lasted 2 minutes. He said, you get involved in this, or I do. I bring the full weight of the emergency management system. The next day, guess what happened? Well, good neighbor WPX showed up and was installing 1,100-gallon water buffaloes, detaching their water well, and putting vent pipes. What is going on here? Cabot at least had the decency of putting water buffaloes in everybody's houses right away because they didn't want to drink that water either. So that was 4 years ago. A year ago when it happens, the families have to wait over 4 months, still no answer what happened, and we had to threaten them to get water buffaloes installed. Now I'd like to tell you that's the only problem in the state of Pennsylvania. That's just the tip of the iceberg. So now we give tours, reality tours. I can back up everything I'm saying. But you know what I can't do? That's the Bible, and there's the U.S. Constitution. In these documents, including the Constitution of the state of Pennsylvania, I can find no legal authority for anybody in power or elected official for putting the citizens of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania through that. I read you what protections we have on our environment. They're not only being ignored, we might as well use that document to start a fire with, because we're not going to get any help.